Before I start diving into just some of the history of the memorial, I would like to take the chance to give credit to Edinburgh Napier University, the National Scotland newspaper, and the Scottish Poetry Library for providing me with all the information I need for talking about the memorial. Note, much of what I say will be directly from the sources themselves. I would also like to thank whoever is listening to this audio. I want to thank you for taking the time to reflect on the emotions Monroe surfaced for you, but also for taking a moment to reflect on the memorial's purpose and for acknowledging the importance of the memorial for remembering the poets and their works. The memorial was created due to the partnerships of Edinburgh Napier University, University of Aberdeen, Wilfred Owen's Edinburgh, Scottish Poetry Library, Dignity Funerals Ltd, National Library of Scotland, and the City of Edinburgh Council, with the purpose of creating a recognition within Edinburgh of Scottish war poets and their bravery and sacrifice, as well as the rich body of work they have left behind. It was unveiled on Friday the 23rd of November 2018 in Makars Court, i.e. next to the Writers' Museum in Edinburgh, which I'm sure if you've gotten this far, you already know. A public poll was launched as a means to provide the public with an opportunity to have their say with regards to a preferred quote. This preferred quote was chosen out of 6 poems, and whoever won could feature on the permanent memorial. The poets in the running were David Mackay, 1891 till 1956, an Ayrshire man who was a journalist before and after the First World War, and became the editor of the Southern Reporter newspaper in the Scottish borders. I would like to take a moment to say that this memorial is a World War I memorial, and that the quotes that were selected to be chosen all came from Scottish poets from the World War I period. I just wanted to take a moment to really acknowledge that. Next, another contender was Murdo Murray. He lived from 1890 to 1964. He was born in Backlewis, as I said, in 1890. He volunteered in 1914 and joined the 4th Battalion of the Seaforth Highlanders, spending most of the war in the trenches until 1918, when he was badly wounded in the arm. Neil Monroe, 1863 till 1930, was an Argyll-born journalist and author, best known for his para-handy tales. He was also considered, and as we know, he was the eventual poet to have his words appear in the memorial. Monroe returned to journalism in 1914 on the outbreak of war. He visited the front line several times in the capacity of war correspondent in 1914 and 1917, and the war touched him personally when his son Hugh was killed in action. J.B. Salmond was also considered. His life was between 1891 till 1956, and he was a journalist, a poet, and a novelist who served in the First World War. He then edited the Scots magazine for over 20 years and wrote acclaimed histories. In 1917, Salmond ended up in the hospital at Craiglockhart Hospital, and during this time there, he edited the hospital magazine, The Hydra, with Wilfred Owen as his sub-editor. And just to clarify, that was in 1917. J.A. Stewart, again, was another poet considered, and he was a Glasgow University graduate who was a teacher in Coatbridge and an officer in the Border Regiment during the First World War, with one book of poetry published in 1917. He took over command of the 4th Battalion South Staffordshire Regiment in April 1918 and sadly was killed on April 26 in action, making his life between 1889 till 1918. And finally, Mary Simon. Her life was between 1863 till 1938, and she was the only female poet to be considered. She was from Daft Town, and she is acknowledged for her poetry about the effect of the war on Scotland's people. All of these poets, writers, novelists and journalists all wrote amazing pieces of work, and they should be so honoured that their work was selected. But sadly, not everyone could win. So after nearly 1,000 votes, all made online, just for your information, the quote chosen to appear in the monument was taken from Neil Munro's poem Lament for the Lads, which was published 12 years after the war ended. Thank you very much for taking the time out to listen to a bit of the history behind this memorial, to get to know a little bit about the poets that were considered. They all lived truly remarkable lives, and they will never be forgotten. And that's what the memorial's purpose is, for you guys to take a moment and really reflect on who they are and what they did. If you would like to know more, you can just visit the Scottish Poetry Library and you can see their work that was chosen to be selected on, to be put on the memorial, or you can just read their other works. Whatever you feel like, whatever you prefer, if you've got the time to, please, if you can, or if you want to, just go and check it out. Again, thank you very much for listening. Take care of yourselves.